This is the Real Change Wilmington podcast, episode 21, with our guest today, Shelby Boatman, with the Clinton County History Center.
Local history is extremely important, and I think it gets like a bad rap, or people don't give it enough attention that it's due. I was guilty of that too. You know, when I wanted to be a museum curator and work in a museum, I would tell everybody, I'm going to work at the Smithsonian, I'm going to work at some giant museum in New York or wherever it was. And getting the job here at the History Center has opened my eyes tremendously. I wear a t-shirt. A lot of people see me wear a t-shirt that says all history is local history. And that is the truest statement that I can express, is that even events that happened in the American Revolution, that happened in the Civil War, that happened in the Civil Rights Movement, those happened in small communities somewhere that it is local history. That's where it started at.
Hey everyone, this is your host of the Real Change Wilmington podcast, Dustin Pierce, joined like always with my co-host,
Emily Spencer.
So Real Change Wilmington is your positive, constructive, and lighthearted source of local news, events, and resources. And on our podcast, we interview local leaders to help squash rumors and just foster a greater sense of community in Wilmington. Before we get started, Emily, how are you doing today?
You know, living my best life. Really excited because I just got a new smoker over the weekend, and I have to figure out if I have to replace the igniter, but we're really fingers crossed here that the pellets are just bad.
Well, hopefully you can get it fixed for this weekend because we definitely need it for our wine walk luau.
I know, I'm so pumped.
Yeah, so if you listen to this podcast before June 10th, there is a wine walk this weekend in Wilmington, and Make Shark will be one of the stops. Be sure to check it out. We're going to have some canned Moscato. It's going to be a good time.
And what about you? Anything interesting happening in the world of Dustin?
Well, we just released our second print edition, so we brought local back, and we're doing it again. Anyways, so on today's show, we got to talk with Shelby Boatman, who is the director of the Clinton County History Center, and we asked her about how she got her role at the History Center, what her vision is for the center, and her passion for local history. And then we also talked about just some of the history and founders of Clinton County. What were some highlights for you, Emily?
I really liked it when Shelby talked about General Denver and all of the shenanigans that he got into, and the fact that Denver, Colorado is named after him. And he only went there a couple times, and every time he said it was not great.
Yeah, I think like she was saying his like army team or whatever named it after him, just like it took an honor of him, and he's like, okay, great, thanks, like that place sucks.
Wow, what a dumb.
Yeah, like, or no, he like wasn't in charge at that time when it got named after him, so he didn't really care anymore, or it was a waste of a name. This is the History Center. Talk with someone who's
We're not local historians.
No,
We're just
not at all.
Two schmucks with a microphone.
Yeah. Something that stood out to me was I'd never been in the History Center before, which is right across from Kava House, just in case people don't know where it's at. But it was really charming, really cool. And there's some cool local history, and there's a toy room with a really creepy doll named Creepy Baby, or Baby Creeping or something. Creeping Baby. So if you want nightmares, go check that out.
You know, Shelby said not to speak ill of the name of Creeping Baby.
Oh yeah, it's gonna haunt me now. It's gonna crawl out of the museum at night and come to my house and get me.
Your chickens.
No, not my chickens. Take me.
Wake up one day and the Creeping Baby's just gonna be in your coops.
We go check my eggs and see Creeping Baby in there. Yikes! All right, so without further ado, let's bring in Shelby Boatman and get this podcast started. So, Shelby Boatman, welcome to the podcast. Thank you for being here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm super excited.
Well, we'll see. Molly just gave us the tour, so she talked for a good, shit.
You're kidding me. You have to keep that in now.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so if you don't know, Molly, Shelby has a sister named Molly.
There are two of us.
Yeah, and
just one.
Yeah, and we work with Molly sometimes, so this is gonna be very hard for me to keep it straight in this interview.
He's got to do a lot of editing.
Oh my god!
A sign.
A name tag.
Name tag on.
All right, so Shelby gave us a tour before this. We got to see all of the Clinton County Historical Centers. How do you call it?
History Center.
History Center, historical history.
We either one, Historical Society, History Center, whatever works for you guys.
That place on, is it Main and
Locust and Lincoln.
Locust and Lincoln, yeah, across from Kava House.
Yeah.
So pretty cool stuff. So why don't you get started by just telling us about who you are and, your background in Wilmington and what got you into being the director?
Sure. So I am a 2013, I'm going to age myself here, 2013 graduate of Wilmington High School. And I went off to college and got an undergrad in history and political science from Ashland University. There's a couple of Clinton Countyans that have went to Ashland as well. And while at Ashland, I did the Ashbrook program. That is a political science / history focused kind of co-op founded by John Ashbrook, and graduated in 2017. As part of that program, I had to defend a thesis, and that was a whole year-long study on a topic that I had chosen. And I was kind of burnt out after undergrad, so I took a year off and ended up winding up at another job, and then decided I wanted to go back to grad school. So I went to NKU for 2 years and got a master's in public history. And halfway through that program, there was a job posting at the Clinton County History Center for executive director. I sat and kind of stewed over it for a couple weeks, and I was like, I don't know, should I apply? Should I not? And thought, well, I'll apply just for the internship or just for the interview experience and see, how it goes. Not ever expecting that they would hire me. Halfway through grad school, I didn't have my master's yet, and I didn't think that I had a chance. So sent in my application, heard back, went through 2 rounds of interviews, and eventually came down between me and another person, and got the email that they had officially chosen to pick me on the condition that I would finish grad school and finish up my degree and then continue working. So I was working while doing my grad schooling.
Working at the
History Center.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And that was hard. I would commute 2 or 3 times a week down to NKU and then also work full time at the History Center. But I believe in hard work, so that was no problem to me. And I took over the role officially in March of 2019. I think I'm the 10th or 11th director of the History Center. And I kind of came with the qualifications of I knew how to preserve things. I knew how to display things. I knew how to basically make history consumable for the public, public history, and had a lot of tools in my tool chest to be able to provide to my community. And ironically, I had actually interned at the History Center through undergrad for 2 summers. And I worked on some digitization projects. I worked on planning a would-be cemetery tour, which actually never really came to fruition. So getting to do that later in life was amazing. So I kind of had a background knowledge of what the History Center was about and put in the application, and the rest is history, as ironic as that is.
Yeah. So what are some of the immediate changes that you've made or products you took on when you started? Yeah.
So one of the first things that I did when I took over was we expanded to Saturday hours. Previously, it was just Wednesday through Friday. It was during the week, and 1 to 4 is obviously not always conducive during the week for families or for working individuals. It's more of the retiree audience. So I said, I want to get families into the History Center, especially those that live in our community, so they can understand what we're all about. So expanding Saturday hours was numero uno on my agenda. I also completed an emergency management plan. So let's say that our museum is hit by a tornado, a flood, a fire, whatever. There's a booklet that you have all the manifesto of what to do if you're in an emergency situation, who to call, how to preserve things. If something gets damaged, what do you do? And also prioritizing what we should save. If there's a fire, what do we save first? So those were some of the first things on the list. Working with my board of trustees was crucial, and building a good relationship with them, a working relationship where we could all have the best interests of the Historical Society at heart. That was also a huge leap for me as well.
Nice. What are you smirking for? Are you zoning out?
I was thinking about you calling her Molly again.
Oh my gosh.
You're going to have to interview Molly just for this.
Yeah, this is Molly, not Shelby. Anyways, back to what we discussed. Okay. So can you give us a brief history about the History Center?
Yeah. So like we mentioned on the tour, we are 75 years old this year. And in 1948, the Historical Society was officially incorporated. 1948, yeah. There's so many numbers that live in my brain. By 3 individuals and 3 guys from Clinton County. They wanted to form a museum or some type of like heritage site where they could preserve Clinton County's past, knowing that people of the future needed to remember that and honor that. And there was a lot of discussions before 1948 from what I've researched. There were different families and different community members that were like whispering, hey, we need a museum, or we need something to preserve, what we're about. Because everybody believes, if you don't know where you're coming from, you don't know where you're going. So 3 gentlemen got together and incorporated the Historical Society. And in 1948, we did not have our historic house, or Rombach Place, as it's referred to. They actually were set up at the Wilmington Public Library in a room, and they started hosting programming, talks, educational opportunities. And one of the very first meetings of the Historical Society was actually hosted at the courthouse. There used to be an auditorium at the 3rd courthouse that we have today. It was held, I think, in April of 48, maybe. And they got together and they said, hey, we're going to start a museum. Who wants to join? And again, the rest is kind of history. They got family members to become members of the History Center. They got donations. And then around 1953 is when they started looking for a site, a museum, like a physical building. And they found Rombach Place, which was formerly owned by David and Elizabeth Williams. They were the last owners of the property. And in 55, they drawn up a contract with David Williams for $30,000 to purchase what was General Denver's former, family home. The Historical Society was able to raise $15,000 through card parties, through fundraisers, through family donations, things like that. And then the rest, the other $15,000, had to be borrowed through a mortgage, and eventually paid that off. Later down the road, like I mentioned to you guys on the tour, in 2000, like 1998 to 2000, they hosted a capital campaign. And we needed to expand our storage, our facilities, our community spaces, make it handicap accessible. So they built an addition onto the historic house. That included the elevator, our genealogy research library, our community room, and updated bathrooms. Because fun fact, in the main hallway where you guys were standing with that stained glass window, that used to be like our water closet. And there was one bathroom, and everybody who worked there or volunteered there or visited, that was it. So expanding into the 21st century was really crucial. So that was the biggest next step on the timeline of the History Center. And people often wonder, why is it Historical Society versus History Center? And I can kind of touch on that too.
Okay.
There's like a little rebranding.
It's my pressing question, actually.
Yeah. People always get confused as to what our name is. Our legal name is the Clinton County Historical Society, Inc. But we kind of like pseudo rebranded in the mid 2000s. So like probably 2015 to 2017, when a lot of historical societies were going to history connections or history centers or history institutes. And for example, the State Historical Society in Columbus is now the Ohio History Connection. And we kind of followed that lead as well, because around that time, the younger generation, I think, thought that the Historical Society was too stuffy or like too dated. So they ended up going with History Center. I am okay with using either. They're interchangeable, so whatever works.
So you mentioned the last owner of the house was Mr. Williams. What's the first name?
David.
David Williams. Mm-hmm. And how does he relate to General Denver?
Yeah, so David was General Denver's great-grandson. He had a brother, J.W. Denver Williams Jr., and we talked about David and J.W. were brothers. J.W. was killed in Okinawa in World War II, but General Denver is a direct ancestor of David. And fun fact, if you didn't know, David was actually deaf, and his wife Elizabeth was deaf too. And they were, I've never met them. I actually know their daughter Bonnie. She lives in Columbus, and getting to learn more about the family and how they persevered through, challenges back in the day were really hard. And Most of them went to college. Most of them were well educated and influential, accomplished people, their family. They had a lot of history of deaf people in their family. It's amazing to hear their story. And unfortunately, neither David nor Elizabeth are living. They are buried out at Sugar Grove Cemetery. A lot of people, if they listen to your podcast, they might know Liz Betts. Like Elizabeth owned a clothing store downtown. And they just were the patrons of our organization. You know, they would come in and support us with funding or advice or resources back in the day. And unfortunately, I never got to meet them, but to meet some of their descendants. They have 2 daughters and a son, and they're pseudo like in the, not the Wilmington area, but like in the greater like Cincinnati, Dayton, Columbus region. So I do know all 3 of them. And to have a family history that is that deep, you know, to say that like your great-grandfather or great-great-grandfather was a Civil War veteran and U.S. representative for California, it's like, holy cow. So yeah, it's a very interesting timeline.
Yeah. So do we want to talk about like how, because you started our tour with Rombach and Denver as kind of like, it sounded like the founders a little bit of Clinton County, or initial, maybe not founders, but like initial people who expanded things here. So can you give us that history?
Sure. So kind of what we talked about on the tour is Matthew Rombach. He was a German immigrant and kind of fresh off the boat from Germany and settled in Cincinnati. Cincinnati at that point was a huge hub for German immigrants and that culture. They all got together in that region. And he met his wife, Catherine. They were supposed to move down south, and I'm not sure what fate of events occurred that they didn't. But they ended up leaving Cincinnati and coming north to Wilmington, and that's where our story really starts. Their only daughter was Louise, and she married General James W. Denver. I think they were about 12 years apart, which is weird now, but very common back then.
Was she younger or older?
She was younger.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's had to ask, you know?
Right. So she married General Denver, and General Denver originally came from Virginia, but then settled in Clinton County with his family like around 10 or 11 from what I've researched. And
did he go to like Wilmington High School or something, or?
You know, I don't know that it would have been necessarily Wilmington High School in like the early 1800s, but I'm not sure. He did go down to a law school in Cincinnati, and there's still buildings and things that he would have seen in his lifetime down there. But I'll talk about it in a minute. But there are still buildings in Clinton County that are standing that the family were instrumental in developing or aiding in some way. So, yeah, basically to cut the story short, because if you just Google General Denver, you're going to find out who he is. General Denver and his father-in-law got together. They both had some large sums of money, and they were kind of the entrepreneurs of Clinton County. Irwin Augerbit, National Bank and Trust, which is now People's Bank here on North-South or South Street down in Wilmington. They got involved in banking. They got involved in business. Champion Bridge, which is still in existence today over on Sugar Tree Street. So they kind of helped economic development in a way. You know, it's kind of weird to say that today, but they did pour some money into the community, all while maintaining Rombach Place, the museum, as their home, and kind of operating, you know, out of that centrally located site. And then, Justin, we talked about how today there are still a lot of connections to the Rombachs and the Denvers, in that Rombach Avenue is named after them. The park, the city park in Wilmington, is the J.W. Denver Williams Jr. Memorial Park, which was David's brother. There's the General Denver Hotel. I'd be remiss if I didn't say that. General Denver's son was instrumental in helping to develop and make that hotel a possibility. And it was finished in the 1920s. It's always been the General Denver Hotel. So there's still a lot of connections that people don't realize to this family that was kind of influential in making Clinton County what it is. Before Rombach Avenue was kind of Restaurant Row, it used to be all farmland. And one side was completely owned by the Williams family, which are descendants of General Denver and Matthew Rombach. So there's a lot of connections that people don't realize.
And you also mentioned, I'm sure people down here already know this, but like Denver, Colorado is named after General Denver.
Yes,
You
yeah.
traveled out there for the,
Yep.
you said the Manifest something or another.
Yes. So
Manifest Destiny, is that what it is? 5 Goes West, that cartoon. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, Denver, Colorado. Like that's our little claim to fame.
You ever see 5 Goes West? I love that show, The Little
I've
Mouse.
never.
Are you kidding me?
Have you
No.
ever
You're
seen
too-
An American Tale?
American Tail, 5 Goes
No.
West.
No.
He was a Jewish immigrant, right? In the first one.
Yeah,
the
they're
second
like
one, he went to out west.
Russian Jewish, I think. They're
Russian.
little mice, and they immigrant.
Okay.
They immigrate, and then they're in like New York City, Ellis
Uh-huh.
Island. They do all that, and then they decide we're going west.
Yeah.
So they go.
Anyways, I'm sorry.
The synopsis of 5 Goes West.
Yeah.
I just can't believe.
Oh, I mean, while Shelby's like doing schoolwork, I'm like watching cartoons. That's my history.
History's not for everybody. It's okay. It's all right.
Okay.
I'll make it fun. Okay, I promise.
Yeah.
Dustin enjoyed his tour.
I
Just for
d-
anyone listening,
I did. There's a lot of creepy dolls in it and stuff.
Emily was fangirling over everything.
Yeah.
Dude, I love a good historic house.
What were we talking about?
History
Rombeck.
nerds
Um,
unite.
Denver,
Yeah.
Colorado.
Denver, Colorado. Yeah. So, anyways, and then he also moved out east in his later life, right, in DC.
Yeah, so the timeline, and I didn't want to talk too much about it because if you do Google it, it's pretty easy to find. But
Sure.
the timeline is he did move out west. He was involved with California as a state representative, as Secretary of State for California. He, which I didn't tell you guys, was involved in a massive duel with a reporter.
He was?
Yes, Edward Gilbert.
Like a gun duel?
Yes.
And
Like pistols blazing.
So he won, I guess?
He did.
Nice.
Yeah. But you know what that means if he won.
He killed a man.
Yeah, sweet.
Yes. He tried to give.
Wasn't a Quaker then, I guess.
He was not a Quaker. No. Out west, this newspaper reporter was kind of hounding him and saying that he just wasn't a good guy and ended up getting challenged to a duel.
Nice.
And he shot into the ground first to give Edward Gilbert the chance to like back off.
Oh, what a
And-
good guy.
And he reloaded. So General Denver said, if you're going to try and kill me,
Yeah.
like, you gone.
Wow. Entrepreneurial guy and badass. My new hero.
So Denver, Colorado is named after him, and that is definitely a claim to fame. The museum is his family's home. He spent time in the museum. We've got letters that he would send to his wife and to his children while he was out west or east traveling. He kind of was involved in everything, a man of his time, like I told you guys, politics, lawyer, anything and everything, really. And in his later life, he was a lawyer in Washington, D.C., and would commute between Wilmington and D.C. He passed away from what we would understand as kidney failure and was then brought back via train to Wilmington and buried in Sugar Grove Cemetery. So there's a huge family plot and an obelisk. So it's like a giant Washington monument, like the little pointy stone. And it's out at Sugar Grove that you can find it there too.
When you said he was a man of his time on our tour, you kind of talked about how he was part of the Manifest Destiny of like pushing the Indians out of the West. And then like, because that was what people were doing back then, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
And then as he aged, he tried to rectify that a little bit or help them get their land, some of the land back.
Yeah. So, and like I told you guys in the tour, like I hardly get out of my office, so there's not a ton of time to research. And I am very a primary source, citing where you get your information from, just being very upfront about doing the research that needs to be done to ensure that it's accurate.
Mm-hmm.
So we're slowly working on improving all the stories that we're telling through primary sources, secondary sources, things like that. But yes, so General Denver was governor of the Northwest Territory when they were moving out west, and also commissioner of Indian Affairs. So what that title would be is basically manifest destiny and working, air quotes, with Native Americans to, air quotes, to acquire their lands. And he would, and you can research more about this, but a lot of times like Native Americans were swindled or they were talked out of their lands. They didn't understand what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
So General Denver, as part of like his government, job, everybody had a job to do. He would work with Native Americans to acquire more American land, U.S. land. And later in his life, from the research that I have done, There's also a book that's in our gift shop about his life as well. Through what I've found out is that obviously he's not alive, so we can't ask him what he really felt. We can only tell by the letters, the documents, the manuscripts that are available through his own handwriting. But he did, I hope, I think, felt remorse for some of what had happened. And as a lawyer, from some of the records I found, he did represent Native American tribes to try and get lands back or try and make sure that they were justly repaired or repaid in some way. Right now, it's like a hot topic, with a lot of things going on in history. Like, you're looking at history through a different lens than you were even 10 years ago, even 25 years ago, even 100 years ago. So when I say he was a man of his time, like, that's kind of what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What?
When did John Denver pass away? Or not John Denver.
Oh, what are you saying?
That's what good.
John Denver is from Gilligan's Island, right?
No, John Denver was a music artist. He died in a plane crash in the 60s.
Okay.
But
I'm editing all of this conversation out.
When did General Denver die? I literally was in my brain like, don't say it, and then I regurgitated it.
Gosh.
When did General Denver die?
Sure. For your podcast, you do have to keep this in. The guy from Gilligan's Island, the Denver, he's an actor with the last name Denver. He is not related to General Denver at all. Everybody thinks that he is. There is absolutely no genealogy timeline that proves that he is related to General Denver. It's when Find a Grave, it says that he is.
Oh, really?
He is not related.
Weird.
Nope. I've done the genealogy. Anyways, to segue back to what Emily was saying, he died in 1892.
Wow. What a life.
Yes.
I'm just trying to, imagine all the things that he saw and, how we perceive his history, but was his living time changed.
Absolutely.
I think that about people who were born at the turn of the century and died in, 2000.
Yes. It's sometimes hard to wrap around people living, almost 100 years. Like, what all did they see and experience and what life was like way back when?
Yeah.
I gotta call this misnaming the History Center. You're calling her Molly. I'm calling General Denver John Denver.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Into the sun.
So, last thing about General Denver. What's the hot goss on him?
The hot goss?
That's what people really want to know. Facts be danged. What's the hot goss?
Ooh, hot goss.
The unverified circulations of information.
Well, the fact that Gilligan's Island man is related to him, which is not true. I'm sure everybody wonders, what did he do while he was away from home? I know.
Ben Franklin. Yeah.
Did he have a second family?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. These are all questions that I want
Probably lovingly loved his wife and was devoted to the very end.
In all that I've found, yes, that is accurate. Aww. In all honesty, that's what I've found. He would write letters back home to her at Roundback Place and just talked about how much he missed his family, how much he missed her. I had told you guys on the tour that they would meet about halfway in the U.S. and by train try to get together in St. Louis or somewhere, wherever he was located, they would meet about halfway so that they could visit. But Louise, from what I understand, was kind of sickly or didn't enjoy traveling or something because she did not want to go traveling around with him.
Yeah.
So I don't know what they were doing apart. Honestly, it's something that I want to research and I want to learn more about. But I have yet to find out that he had a spare family. Who knows?
A spare family.
Who knows?
Yikes.
Louise is writing him. You can't come. Too sick.
Of your BS.
Yeah. And then General Denver's like, all right, get the bitches out.
You can't be saying on the podcast.
The biatches out. There we go.
Oh my gosh. Do you ever... Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, and I also can't imagine, Emily, you were talking about back in the day, they did not have text message or cell phones or phones. Yeah. So the only communication that they had was letters. And those did not arrive the same day. They were arriving days or weeks after they were written. And I just can't imagine that separation of not having that instant communication with somebody we do today.
Do you have any saucy letters from him and his wife?
Ooh. None that I've found yet.
Okay.
None that I've found.
Yikes.
Louise, I saw your ankle last night.
I will say that speaking of saucy, I mean, like he was at least home enough to have 4 children. So,
Okay.
So we'll just leave it at that.
There you go.
4 children in a 2-bedroom.
Wow. Okay. There's some things that we can get off on topic, but okay. Sorry.
No, you're fine.
All right. So for everyone's information, I just asked Emily. I forgot her name.
You just kicked Emily out.
I just kicked Emily out to do something else.
Now it's just me and Dusty. Hey.
Yeah. Have you ever tried to talk to General Denver Ouija board style, like get a Ouija board in the museum?
Absolutely not.
Do you have like any Egyptian like relics that like make the museum come to life at night?
You know, I wish it was like Night at the Museum. Ben Stiller, you know.
Yeah,
actually, Nick Cage is my hero. So
okay, yeah.
You know,
different museum. Yeah.
National Treasures.
Sure.
Yeah. But there are definitely there are like weird scenarios that happen at the museum. I don't like to be there after dark. It just kind of gets a little like scary.
Yeah.
I mean, unfortunately, we have a collection of probably like 100,000 objects, and each of those belong to somebody, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And before there were hospitals and before there were funeral homes, there were people that lived in it was a house, you know, before a museum. There were people that lived there, died there, had babies there. They did life there. So we know through obituaries and through research that, yes, people died in the house. But I like to just say, hey, I'm here to do my job. Please don't hurt me.
Please don't haunt me or follow me home.
And just move on with life.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Anyways, we didn't really get into this, I don't think, but what are the different type of services and things that you guys offer the community and guests?
Yeah. We do a variety of things, not just at the History Center, but also in the community. Outside of our physical building, our most popular and well-known thing would be our Talking Tombstone Cemetery.
Well, let's go talk about the building itself. So, you can become a member, or you can just come for the day.
Yeah.
What are the prices right now?
So, you can become a member for the year, which is all the way through 2023, and an individual is $25, and a family is $35. A business is $100. And you get free tours. You get discounts to programs like our high teas, our cemetery walk, things like that. You get 10% off in the gift shop, anything that we have. And you get advance notice on programs, events, activities, special event, activities, all that stuff. I just said that already, but there are a lot of benefits. You also get a quarterly newsletter, which we publish 4 times a year, and that's mailed to your doorstep, as it sits right in front of Dustin right here.
Yeah, with your face on it.
Yes, which you didn't know that was me.
I did know it was you. I was joking.
So there's a lot of benefits to membership, and membership is crucial because that's what supports us and allows our doors to be open. It pays for the utilities, it keeps the lights on, it keeps the water running. You mentioned that you guys are not funded by the city or any kind of tax. Yes, it's all donation based. So I always say that probably shocks a lot of people is we are a 501c3 nonprofit. We do not receive any taxpayer money through a levy or through like continuous support through county, city, state, or federal. We are not supported or stay afloat through either or through any of those. So what does keep us afloat is our grant applications. We're about 50-50 for grant applications, which I'm super proud of. We've done really well with grants. And then memberships, donations, ticketed events like our cemetery walk, which is a huge fundraiser for us. Mm-hmm. And then we do have a small endowment, but are actively spending that. The stock market has not been good. And then to continue to pay employees and inflation and things, we've definitely seen a huge hit with that. So if we don't continue to have members or we don't have support, I'm not sure where we'll be at, in the next 10 to even 75 years. Are you guys part of the Clinton County Foundation? We are not. Okay. No. I know Sabina Historical Society is under their 501c3. Okay. But we have our own 501c3, so we are like a private nonprofit. Gotcha. Mm-hmm.
Can you like talk a bit about the events that you have? So like the high tea, that sounded pretty cool. Like you guys do a tea out on your patio?
Yeah. So we started implementing that when I took over, and it is again another fundraiser that we do, and we try to make it themed with some type of like educational programming or something that relates to pseudo Clinton County history. And our teas are very popular. They always sell out. They're welcome to men, women, children, whoever wants to attend. You don't have to be, just an older retiree or something.
So what's it like? You go and you get tea, and what happens?
Yeah, so you get tea, you get all kinds of food. We get a lot of food donated through local businesses, and then we have cottage cooks, which was what the health department would call them, but they make them in their kitchen at home. So we have food, we have tea, and then we do a special program that usually lasts like half an hour. One of our most popular, most recent teas was we had it outside in the front lawn, and we had historical characters dress up. So Jonathan McKay dressed up as General Denver.
Nice.
Surprise. And then Lucy Inge, she's a friend of ours. She dressed up as Louise. Traditionally, my sister plays Louise because those are two people I can count on to like always do it right.
Yeah.
But her and my mom are instrumental in helping set up for the tea and help kind of facilitate all of that. So our teas are super successful. We're having another one for Mother's Day, like around Mother's Day, Saturday, April 20th. It's going to be the first one of the year.
Okay.
I don't know if this will be out there by the 20th.
I'm not sure, yeah.
But we are going to do that. We are hoping to do a couple themed teas this year.
Have you had anybody dress up as that drummer kid?
As
like,
Little Gib?
Little Gib?
I have not had anyone dress up as Little Gib, but...
Missed opportunity.
I know, right? We do have... I'm in the works for... With this being the 75th anniversary, we're going to have some special parties and some special events that are really extra than what we would do.
Yeah.
And there's some talks about doing some stuff for like men, like more men oriented, alcohol and other themed things rather than tea.
Okay.
And then we are going to have a huge gala or a party in August for our members and some community individuals as well.
A party at the center? At
the center,
okay.
Yeah. And we're going to have vintage photographs from 75 years of the Historical Society. All of our past directors and our past board of trustees are going to be invited. Not everybody is still living, obviously, but we're going to try and get as many people as we can to attend.
Nice.
Yeah.
And then the other service, I don't know if it's called a service or not, but you have the archives upstairs that's run, it's volunteer run by some older people.
Yes, yeah.
So what's that about?
So our genealogy research library is maintained by all volunteers. A lot of them are retired teachers, retirees. Some of them live at Cape May. And in the spare time that they have, they want to donate it and dedicate it to the History Center, which is amazing. And some of our volunteers have been involved with the research library for, I kid you not, like 30, 35 years or more. They started when they were, a lot younger. And they just know as soon as somebody walks in and they're like, oh, my family name is XYZ, they know the exact book to pull, they know the exact file to look for. And it just blows my mind that they store all of that, in their heads. But it's all volunteer ran. Those hours are Friday 1 to 4 and Saturdays 10 to 2. Whereas the museum is open Thursday and Friday 1 to 4 and Saturdays 10 to 2. The pandemic really hit us really, really hard. We were classified as an entertainment venue, so we got shut down for 3 months. Like literally nobody came in for 3 months. We had to get very creative on how we could do social distancing because you saw in the museum, it's like, so social distancing is impossible. So a lot of our volunteers weren't able to come back. They had found something else, or they preferred to stay home just due to the social distancing. So we are down to a handful of volunteers, but we are always looking for more. So if somebody that's listening to this is interested in volunteering, reach out to me, reach out to the History Center, because we take anybody and everybody. It doesn't matter if you're a high school senior or a college person or a retiree. We want everybody to feel welcomed and to feel like they're able to help.
This is off topic. What was your backup plan if you didn't get the job as the director?
I have no idea.
Okay.
Yeah, Emily had asked me on the way in, she's like, did you always want to be a museum curator? And I said, in all honesty, for as long as I can remember, yes. Yes. I had a small moment where I wanted to work in the fashion industry because
Okay.
I love, wearing fun clothes and just like dressing up and things.
Uh-huh.
But I always wanted to work in a museum, and I've just always had like this history nerd, inside of me that I knew what I wanted to do in life. And I mean, I guess if I didn't get the job, then I just would have worked at a larger institution like Cincinnati, Columbus, Dayton. But I think what makes it extra special is that I was born and raised here. I get the opportunity to preserve my community's history and just have that connection in so many levels with all that comes with the job.
Yeah. What's one of your favorite artifacts at the center?
Oh my gosh, that is such a hard question.
I think you should say that creeping doll, because if you don't say the creeping doll, it's going to find out and haunt you.
That's true. Creeping baby. Yes,
Creeping
yes.
baby.
If you've been to the museum, you know about creeping baby. She is well traveled. Oh my gosh. There are a lot of things that I really like in the museum. They each have their own individual story. It's like really hard to pick. But visually, I think my favorite are the two like 6 foot by 6 foot paintings by Eli Harvey, or however big they are, maybe 4 foot.
Oh, yeah.
That I showed you guys on the walls.
Those are great.
Those were from 1892 and 1895 when Eli Harvey was in France. And the work and dedication that it must have taken to paint those are amazing. And looking at them, it just transports you to the site where he was standing at. So those are, off the top of my head, those are some of the ones that I really like the most. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think the one on the right with the darker scene with the lake like really stood out to me too. I was like,
Yes.
That's really impressive. All the little weeds in the lake that he made. It's crazy.
And he was, I'm going to butcher the word, but plein air painter, however you say that, in that he would go out to the lake or go out to the mountains or the trees and paint it, but then he had to let that canvas dry and then go back days later and finish it. So again, that was very time consuming, and they're beautiful. They're beautiful works of art. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Way better than the Bob Ross stuff that I made during COVID. Close though. All right. So how do you engage young people in our community, and what's the importance of preserving and learning about our local history?
Sure. So connecting with a younger audience has been challenging during COVID because the schools, it was just really hard to get in during the pandemic for the sheer fact of social distancing and spreading COVID. So that is something that I'm trying desperately to work on and to build better relationships with our schools. We got a grant during the pandemic to do what I would call a museum in a box or traveling trunk type of exhibit. And it's got reproduction items and state educational standards that are to a 3rd grade level, because in 3rd grade, that's when they're learning about their local community, their local government, local history. We have not been able to implement those back into the schools yet because of the pandemic. I feel like we're just now coming out of it, even though COVID will be with us forever. Fun fact, research the 1918 flu pandemic. It was 100 years ago, and it's just like now. But yeah, getting connected with the schools is a top priority. I also don't have kids, so getting into the schools is a little bit more challenging if you don't have children already in the schools. But
I don't have kids, and I interviewed every single one of the board members. You just gotta walk in there and be like, I'm Shelby. I almost said Molly again. I'm Shelby Boatman. Like, let's do this.
I know Nikki Quallen very well. She's been amazing in helping me with the state standards. And there are teachers that are still teaching that I had in school when I went here. But we are the Clinton County Museum, so expanding to not just Wilmington City School District, but to the entire county can get challenging. Okay. You asked about local history and like why local history is important. Yeah. So let me get on my soapbox. Let me pull it out. Local history is extremely important, and I think it gets like a bad rap, or people don't give it enough attention that it's due. I was guilty of that too. You know, when I wanted to be a museum curator and work in a museum, I would tell everybody, I'm going to work at the Smithsonian. I'm going to work at some giant museum in New York or wherever it was. And getting the job here at the History Center has opened my eyes tremendously. I wear a t-shirt. A lot of people see me wear a t-shirt that says all history is local history. And that is the true statement that I can express, is that even events that happened in the American Revolution, that happened in the Civil War, that happened in the Civil Rights Movement, those happened in small communities somewhere that it is local history. That's where it started at. And although it might look like national history or American, with air quotes, American history, it had to happen or start somewhere. And I took you guys through the museum and I kind of explained these little people from Clinton County. They accomplished great things, and in their lifetime were world-renowned, well-known artists, photographers, lawyers, whoever they were. Unfortunately, they've been lost to history, but I think that is what makes local historical societies so important, is because they are the ones that are keeping that story alive, that are helping to educate and just continue to tell those stories. History is all about stories, and I think just telling the small stories, those culminate and those pile up to make big stories. We are very lucky at the History Center to have paid staff and a board of trustees and some governing bodies, but there are a lot of historical societies that are all volunteer ran, that don't pay anybody, that are based on donation or by appointment only. And like, I have been working with Sabina and Blanchester immensely to help them kind of grow into the best museum practices that they can be. And there's other, or like Highland, if Emily was here, like Highland County, I've worked with them to try and provide the resources and knowledge that I gained in grad school for free, so that these small organizations can survive and strive. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So no, I'll put my soapbox away.
Okay, well, I mean, I need to keep it out. But anyways, so speaking of like engaging people in history, I think you talked about, or Molly talked about, possibly having some like QR codes around town or getting things like historically marked, so that you kind of take this historical history center out of the building and make it more about the community.
Yes.
Is that something that you're doing or in the process of, or
Yeah.
what's the timeline or
Sure.
ideas for that? Yeah.
Yeah, we have a lot of ideas.
Sure.
I think I told you, like, I'm the only full-time person and I have one part-time person. Everything else is volunteer ran, and Molly is amazing. She volunteers. She helps me with the website. She does the new logo, everything free of charge, which is a blessing. But we have a lot of ideas. In the museum itself, we implemented the brand new QR code. So we're 100% self-touring, which I think brings a new aspect in that you don't have to stand and listen to me talk for 20 minutes. And you can go look at whatever you want to look at that interests you, again, making history fun. Outside the walls, we realize that not everybody is going to come physically to our building, so we have to bring history to them. Our cemetery walk is numero uno on that. That is taking living history to the cemetery, and we see over 200 people a year attend that, and making it fun, add air quotes to fun, but making history fun. We got a grant through the city to hopefully do like not plaques, but more of like a display panel around historic sites, especially like Smith Place School. That's no longer standing. Do you know where Smith Place used to be at?
No.
So the sledding hill across from Wilmington Public Library.
Yeah, sure.
That used to be Smith Place School.
So the big castle looking thing in the pictures?
Yep.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there are people like my dad's age, 57, that went to Smith Place and then it was torn down, or main building. So putting out some type of display. I've talked with Molly, and it's going to take a lot of work, but doing AI or alternative, reality, in that you put your phone into a holder and then it can project what the building used to look like, or what the site used to look like, or using vintage pictures to overlay over what you're currently seeing. The underground, I think it's in like the Portsmouth, like Scioto County area. It's called Underground something. And they are using AI technology to like rebuild historic sites that are no longer standing.
Wait, in Portsmouth, Ohio?
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yes. Yeah. I'll send you the link. It's amazing. They've got quite a few grants, state and federal grants, but they are using computers to to do everything.
If Portsmouth can do it, I think Wilmington
I
can
know,
do
right?
it. I mean, jeez. Yikes.
Yes. So if anybody out there would like to help me on that project, please call me.
That sounds fun. It sounds like an endearing way, like maybe spend a date even just walking around town and like going to the center and maybe getting coffee or something.
Yes, yeah. We're right next to Kava House, so you can come get coffee and then see the museum. I would recommend you see the museum and then get coffee because we don't allow drinks in the museum.
Oh, good.
But we just want to be open and we want to be accessible to everybody, you know, and I know that our hours are not the best right now. We're doing literally the best that we can with what we have. But we have a website and we've got a historic marker guidebook. We developed that during COVID. So there's 13 or 14 historical markers, those big brown markers. There's one at the courthouse. There's one at the public library. There's 14 of those around our county. And during the pandemic, we were encouraging, you know, kind of traveling around the county, social distancing. We created a guidebook so that you can see each marker and the GPS coordinates of where you need to go. So we do have a website and there's some interactive like Underground Railroad information on there. There's a collection of digitized postcards. So technology, we're trying to use technology as our friend and leaping into the 21st century so that the History Center can stay relevant with kind of today's generation.
This might be a stupid idea, but like on the plaques that you guys have around town or that you're going to put or that you have, whatever, if there was like some kind of like thing you could put a piece of paper on and like trace a picture, you know, like for the crown or something to like get all the spots or whatever.
Definitely.
I don't know. It's just something stupid.
Yeah, and that would be reaching like a much younger audience.
Yeah,
that
little kids.
They're using their senses. So seeing, touching, hearing, feeling. We definitely want to encourage all of that.
That's awesome. Is there any criticism about the History Center or any misconceptions in the community?
The only thing that could come to mind is that I always hear literally everybody, if they're 50 or older, they always tell me this, that the last time that they visited the History Center was when they were in like 5th grade or elementary school. And the biggest challenge that we have is getting people into the door or getting them to realize what we are doing is really cool. Because once they take a tour, everybody leaves. I hear it every day. They leave and they say, wow, I never knew you had that stuff. I never knew that much history. I never knew Clinton County was that cool, you know? So getting people into the door, getting them as a member so that they can see what we're producing in the newsletter and all the stories that we're doing, helping them realize that we are not Wilmington specific. We are the Clinton County History Center, so we do all of the county's history, the best that we can. And I think in the past, it's kind of by default, like we are located in Wilmington, so we focus on Wilmington. But I've made it my mission for the past 5 years to expand as far as I can into the county. And there's still projects that are in the fire or on the back burner that we want to implement that are going to spread out into the county as well. I think developing good relationships with Sabina, Blanchester, whoever it might be that are in our county, and having a professional, positive relationship is important. But the biggest challenge, I guess the biggest criticism that we have is just, you know, people finding worth or value in what we're doing. And I think I told you and Emily, history is not fun for everybody. You know, if you had a really bad social studies teacher back in high school, history turns you off. But I make it my mission every day that I'm at work, every day I'm in the community, to make history fun and accessible for everybody. So I would say that that's the only thing that comes to mind right now. I think we are moving in a positive way. Our board of trustees have become super involved and helpful, and they want to get their hands kind of dirty in making the decisions or helping with the programming, volunteering at our teas, or we have one individual who's now volunteering every Saturday. She's a board of trustee member in the genealogy library so that we can get some of that stuff scanned and documented correctly. So our board is moving in the right direction. We're finally adhering to the best museum state and federal standards that are out there. I could throw out a bunch of lingo, but I won't I won't bore you with that. Getting the proper certificates and just doing museum best practices, gloves, museum quality boxes, all that. And beefing up our social media. I've really enjoyed doing that while I've been at the History Center. We're embarking on Reels. We're embarking on Facebook Live. We've got a YouTube page as well. So just, again, leaping into the 21st century, that's probably the biggest criticism that I've heard, is just keeping our doors open and being as accessible as we can be. So I'm pretty proud of what we've accomplished over the last couple of years. Yeah. Pandemic included.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So any other things that we should discuss that I haven't asked?
I would just say, if people want to find us or find more about us, our website is clintoncountyhistory.org, all spelled out. And there are multiple other Clinton counties like New York and Michigan, but we're in Wilmington, Ohio. And they also can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube by searching at Clinton County History. And our logo should be the profile picture that pops up.
Okay.
Again, we cannot continue to do or meet our mission of Clinton County History and Genealogy without memberships, without donations, without some type of support from our community. So I hope that people find value in us in exchange for, wanting to support us. And
you said even just going there helps you get grants or something? So signing the guest log.
Yeah. So we apply for grants. I'm the grant writer.
Okay.
And we apply for grants all throughout the year, a variety of it can range from a special program grant to our Museums in a Box. We got a grant through the foundation, through the Lucas Fund, structural grants. So we just got a new sidewalk poured through a Health First grant through the foundation. So there's different grants that are specific, but then there's also state and federal funding that we can try to acquire. We've not been super successful yet in working with our representatives to show, hey, we have X, Y, and Z zip codes. Our cemetery walk, we have zip codes from Kentucky, Michigan, Indiana. I mean, we literally have people coming from the state of Ohio, or coming out of the state of Ohio to attend this program. And then just saying, hey, we've got 200, we've got 300, we've got 500 people visiting the museum this year to show, especially with our local CVB, our Convention and Visitors Bureau, beds and heads, making sure that that we are a tourist destination. And I think we are quickly becoming that, which is exciting.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I think that's all I can think of right now.
Yeah. Well, cool. Thanks for being on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, if anybody wants to find me, they know where to find me at. I'm an open book, and I'm a history nerd, so just come and talk to me.
Awesome. Thanks, Shelby.
Yeah, thank you so much.
See ya. Well, that's it for our show today, folks. I hope you enjoyed hearing from Shelby Boatman with the Clinton County History Center. If you have any questions for her that we did not ask, remember that we are a community of empowered individuals, and you are free to walk in and ask her yourself, just like we did.
Remember to check out our website, realchangewilmington.com, for up-to-date local news, events, and resources, as well as and follow us on social media and YouTube. We want to keep Real Change Wilmington as a free resource for our community, so we're happy to cover the cost of website hosting and printing our paper, but those things do add up. And if you want to be a part of what we're trying to do, which is providing positive, constructive, and lighthearted local news, events, and resources, visit realchangewilmington.com/partner to become a community contributor for just $25 a month. Or if you're a business or an organization, you can contact us there as well for advertising opportunities.
Thanks, Emily. Well, that's it for our podcast today, folks. I'm Dustin Pierce.
And I'm Emily Spencer.
Keep it real, Wilmington.